Every masterpiece begins as a sketch no one believes in.
Talent can be born anywhere, even on a freezing railway station floor. If you ever doubt your own path, remember this story. And before we begin, subscribe to hear more stories that prove everything is possible. On a crowded station, among rushing strangers and echoing footsteps, sat a man the world ignored. His clothes were torn, his hands cold, but beside him leaned canvases alive with color. He begged quietly for coins, yet most people passed without a glance. Then one morning, a businessman stopped. His eyes landed on the paintings, too beautiful to belong to a man with nothing. Suspicion sharpened his tone. "Where did you steal these?" The homeless man lifted his head, calm, steady. "I painted them." The businessman frowned, studying the man as if searching for a lie. How could someone so broken create beauty so whole? The artist didn't flinch. He told his story. Years of sketching on scraps, of painting with brushes so worn, their bristles fell like autumn leaves, of hunger that twisted his stomach while colors poured from his soul. "No one believes me," the man whispered. "Not anymore." The businessman almost walked away, but something in those eyes, a mixture of exhaustion and defiance, made him pause. Finally, he said, "I have matters in this city. I'll return in a few hours. If you are here, we'll talk." The artist nodded. He had heard promises before, but this time felt different. Hours passed. Trains came and left. Rain fell. The homeless man stayed. When evening settled, the businessman returned. In his hand were 2 train tickets. "Pack your paintings," he said. "We are leaving." The man stared speechless. "Leaving? Where?" "To a place where people will see what I see." The train carried them into the night. The businessman kept silent, his gaze firm, while the artist clutched his canvases like fragile children. By dawn, they arrived in a new city, one alive with galleries, critics, and collectors. The businessman led him into a grand hall where preparations for a major exhibition were underway. He placed the paintings on display without a single explanation. Visitors soon gathered. Conversations shifted. Eyes widened. Whispers grew louder. Who painted these? Which master hid behind them? The colors spoke with power. The brush strokes told stories of struggle, survival, and hope. To the crowd, they looked like the work of a genius long established. The artist stood aside, trembling. No one looked at him, only at the art. For the first time in years, he felt seen, though still unseen. The exhibition hall swelled with voices, the air buzzing like an electric storm. Collectors circled the canvases, critics scribbled furiously in their notebooks, and photographers captured every angle. The businessman stood with quiet confidence, watching the wave unfold. He had brought the paintings, but he knew the truth still slept in silence. "Which gallery represents this artist?" someone demanded. "Who is he? Where has he been hiding?" Another whispered, almost in awe. The businessman let the questions build. He waited until the hall pulsed with curiosity. Then he motioned for the homeless man to step forward. The artist's knees shook. He wasn't dressed for such a place, wasn't ready for the eyes that turned on him. But the businessman's nod anchored him. He whispered, "Go. They need to hear it." So he walked into the light. The murmurs swelled. Some people frowned, confused. "This man?" they scoffed. Others leaned closer, eager to hear. The artist's voice trembled at first, but as he spoke of nights painting under broken street lamps, of hunger sharpened by vision, of hope that refused to die, his words grew stronger. He told them how every brushstroke was survival, how every canvas was proof that he was still alive. The hall fell quiet, then came the first clap, then another. Then the room erupted. The critics called it raw genius. The collectors asked for prices. The businessman smiled, his gamble vindicated. Contracts arrived within days. A gallery offered representation. A wealthy collector bought 3 paintings on the spot. The man who once begged for bread was now valued in gold. Yet through it all, he kept repeating, "It's not luck, it's persistence. It's refusing to stop painting when the world tells you no." In the months that followed, he painted with renewed fire. Each canvas carried scars of his past, yet bloomed with visions of his future. Exhibitions spread from city to city. Interviews called him the miracle artist. Students studied his work. His name echoed where once he had been invisible. But success was never simply a gift, it was a responsibility. The businessman reminded him of discipline, of not letting fame corrupt his purpose. He listened. Every morning he worked like the world still doubted him. Every canvas was a battle against the memory of hunger. Years passed in a blur of lights and applause. Yet every time he stood before a crowd, he remembered the station floor, the coins that never came, the doubt that almost buried him. He remembered the businessman who stopped, who believed enough to risk a chance. 10 years passed and the boy of the station was gone. In his place stood a master, his paintings hanging in museums, his story told as a legend of resilience. But to him, the greatest masterpiece was not the art. It was the life rebuilt from ashes. Success did not arrive quietly. It thundered into his life, sweeping away the shadows of poverty with blinding light. Yet he carried his past like a compass, guiding every step forward. He bought a small home first, humble, where he could paint in peace. Soon it grew into a grand house filled with laughter, with the sound of children's footsteps echoing down its halls. He married, built a family, and for the first time, love wrapped around him like a warm coat. His art spoke across borders. Collectors flew in from distant lands. Museums requested his presence. Newspapers called him the soul of modern art. But to him, it was never about fame. It was about proving that even the forgotten could create beauty that would outlast them. Every morning he painted at dawn, disciplined as ever. "Discipline is freedom," he told young artists. "Talent without discipline dies in silence." Students listened, inspired not only by his art, but by his journey. He created series of paintings that captured both suffering and triumph, dark strokes layered with explosions of light. They sold for sums he once could not imagine, yet he always kept one canvas untouched, hidden in his studio, the very first painting he carried from the station. It reminded him of who he had been and why he painted. As years rolled by, he returned once to that old station. It looked smaller now, almost fragile. He stood where he once begged, and for a moment tears blurred his sight. He whispered, "I kept painting. I kept believing." Then he walked away, never to return. His life had become a living testament that no darkness can bury light forever, and that sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in you. From a forgotten man on a cold station floor to one of the world's most celebrated artists, his journey is proof that greatness can rise from the most unlikely places. His story is not just about talent, but about resilience, discipline, and the power of a single chance. The paintings were his voice when no one listened. The businessman was the bridge when no one believed. And together they turned despair into legacy. Today, his works hang in galleries across the world, but his greatest lesson hangs in the hearts of those who hear his story. Never surrender your gift, no matter how long the world ignores it. Discipline keeps the fire alive. Persistence builds the future. So if you doubt your own path, remember him. Remember that success is not reserved for the lucky. It belongs to the relentless, and your masterpiece may already be waiting inside you, ready to change the world. Stay inspired. Subscribe for more stories that remind us the impossible is only the beginning.